Hello, I'm Kylie, and I'm 14 years old. I'm going to try my best to tell you my entire story without making it too long to read. In the winter of 1980, my mom and her husband, at the time, moved into a house on a friendly, pleasant street. The first day they moved in there, numerous things happened wrong. First off, my sister Cindy ended up finding out that she had the measles. Secondly, my brother Todd had a very high fever and had to be taken to the hospital that night. The electricity in the house would not work, and this made my whole family rather upset. My mom began to resent the house for no particular reason. She complained to her husband about it so much that they end up violently arguing. He had an emotional attachment to the house in less than a week, while my mom, she was the exact opposite and felt she needed to leave. Regardless of my mom's feelings, she ended up staying there for another 12 years. There are a few incidents that I'd like to focus on particularly. Incident number 1. When my mom and her husband first purchased the house, my brother was just a baby. One night, after hearing sounds coming from the attic, my mom got up from bed to check everything out. Although she did not find anybody or anything in the attic, she did find a man who she can describe rather specifically: blonde hair, brown eyes, and work clothing. He was entering my brother's room. My mom was so shocked to see him that she started to scream and blocked the door to my brother's room. Her husband heard the yelling and came downstairs to see what was the matter, and all he saw was my mom blocking my brother's door. My mom says that as soon as her husband came downstairs, the ghost disappeared. The police came, but did not find any evidence of anyone being there. Incident number 2. My brother, at 5 years old, began complaining that there was a man living in his wall. When my mom calmly asked him why he thought this, he replied, "You know, you saw him when I was a baby. The man who lives in my wall. He eats in there, sleeps in there, everything." My mom was very frightened, but after consulting the child physician about the matter, she was told that I probably had imaginary friends. Incident number 3. I was born in 1985 to my mother's third husband, Howard. My mom tells me that I was a horrible baby who would never stop crying. When I was 3 years old, I became rather curious by the attic, since my parents told me not to go in there. Disobeying them, I went up there instead. An unknown force pushed me into a car seat that my mom had recently stored up there. It locked me in there. For an hour straight, I screamed my mother to unlock me, but she had been outside. When she came inside, she hurriedly ran upstairs and unlocked the seat. I'd never been able to use the lock on that car seat, and it would have been impossible for me to lock myself in there. Incident number 4. My cousin Heather and I go outside to look at the clouds. In these clouds, we spot 2 figures that barely resemble clouds, but instead drawn images. One of a baby, the other of a small dog. We saw them so clearly that we ran inside crying, only to see that our parents were watching the news. That same day, a baby and a dog died together. We had seen the images at the exact same time that the deaths were announced. Heather and I could always see the ghost. He was always around. He enjoyed watching us play with our Barbie dolls. He'd stand right by us as we played. We tried to get him to leave, but he never would. Eventually, we got used to him being there, and we were not frightened by it. We never told our parents about him, because we both felt that he wanted us to keep him a secret. One night, My family came running upstairs because they heard me screaming. My sister says that my screams were so violent, it's as if I was being murdered. When they asked me what was wrong, I told them that someone was in trouble. I told them that a ghost on the wall told me that someone was dying. I also told them that I kept seeing images of babies on my ceiling. My family was very frightened. I slept with my parents that night. The next day, I found out that my teacher, at the time, had been in a major car accident. She was pregnant at the time, which explains the images of the babies. The next incident. My older cousin and I dared my cousin Heather to come into the attic with us. She would not come up there, and so my older cousin pulled her into the attic with me, and once she was in there, she seemed fine. My older cousin headed downstairs, leaving me and Heather to search the attic for my missing doll. We looked everywhere until we heard a loud scream that sounded as if it was coming from a human. We ran downstairs. Our parents, trying to keep us calm, told us it was probably something we stepped on. Incident number 7. I continued to look for that doll in the weeks to come, only to find it outside, torn to shreds. In the other incident, one night, while my sister was watching a late night movie, the rest of us heard her screaming and ran down to see if she was okay. There was a bat in the house, and it was attacking her. She had a towel over her head and was running from it, shaking and crying. My dad ran after it with a fishing net and luckily was able to get it trapped on our porch. My sister later told us that it appeared from out of nowhere. Later on, my mom runs into the lady who sold us the house. As soon as the lady sees my mother, tears fill up her eyes. She begins to cry and tells my mom how sorry she is for letting her buy that house. She too knew it was haunted and had many bad experiences with it. My mom and her had a big conversation concerning the whole thing, and the lady told my mother that she too had seen a man with blonde hair, brown eyes, and work clothing. We found out from my mom's second husband that the man who built the house died by falling from a ladder. He was not finished with the house, which is obvious. Now that we think back to the unfinished stairway, work clothes, I wonder if he had blonde hair and brown eyes. Now, the story I'm about to relate is unnerving to me. However, to you, it may not be. In fact, it may not have been real at all, but it sure seemed real to me. My mom's mother, Nanny, lived with us for as long as I can remember, so naturally, my brother and I were very close to her. She passed away from bone cancer in October of '93. It was very disconcerting, because the woman she was at the end was not the woman she was in life. In December of '96, I was home for the Christmas holiday from college. I was staying in my old room. My parents were being transferred to Texas shortly, so a lot of things were packed up. My room was completely bare, except for my desk and my bunk beds. My bunks were set up in an L shape. Normally, I would sleep on the bottom bunk, but I had the mattress at school, so I was sleeping on the top bunk. It was about 11:30 in the a.m., and I was somewhere between awake and sleep when someone leaned over me. That's when I awoke to the most hideous sight I'd ever seen. It was my nanny, but she had the most messy hair in the world, long, dangly black hair, and it looked like her eyes were bulging out of her sockets. They were red. She was even bloodied on her face. She kept staring at me, and as she stared at me, she slowly opened her mouth, and bugs crawled out of it. A few seconds go by, and I'm finally awake. Or was I? At that moment, I could have sworn I was awake, but apparently I felt like I was sleeping. It might have been a sleep paralysis incident, but I'm not quite sure. It definitely sounds like the details of one. The thing was, I knew that was Nanny. I swear that the woman was in the room with me, and it's a dead certain feeling, not even something that I can't explain. I went downstairs and had breakfast after this happened. While having breakfast, I chatted with my mother about what happened. We both chalked it up to a very vivid dream. Well, this happened the Monday before New Year's. That Wednesday, I took my dad's car and went to hang out with my then girlfriend. We were driving around and had gotten into an argument. I was on an unfamiliar road, and with the combo of not paying attention, I ran a stop sign. As I was running the stop sign, I could have sworn I saw a woman in white standing in front of the car. We were then hit by a car going about 50 miles an hour. The car hit us so hard that it sent our car about 65 to 70 feet and split the radiator in half. The car had hit on my side. The police said that if the car had hit 3 inches closer, I would have been killed instantly. I walked out with a minor cut on my arm and a bruise on my hip. My girlfriend bruised her collarbone, and the other weird thing was that there was other traffic in the opposite lane, and our car did not get hit. How does this all tie together? Well, my mom, the night before I got into the wreck, had a dream about my nanny, so she believes that the experience I had was her protecting me. I know that sounds absurd, considering what I experienced previously was a really dramatic encounter with my grandma. A little background though, my great nana, my mom's nana, was a very strong maternal presence. She had 8 children and raised them pretty much by herself. My mom and my nana lived with her for a long time, so they were very close. My great nana passed away the day before I was born in a hideous car accident. My interpretation of the facts is as follows. When I was having that experience in bed, and I saw that hideous woman, it was my nanny, and she was in the car crash, so she was showing her form to me. It was almost like a ghostly premonition, and she was warning me of what might come next. Of course, I had no idea what was coming next, and at the time, I was thinking how bizarre it was to have this experience and how freaked out of my mind I was. Then, when I got into my own car crash, I truly believed that I ran that stop sign, and before I even got into the crash, the woman who was there, who flashed before me, was my nanny. Well, anytime my mom or nana dreamt of my great nana, something bad would follow within a few days. So based on all of this, my mom thinks that my nana protected me. I'm not sure what I think. I just know that she was in the room with me that day. As a young kid, I'd often go on arduous walks to the grocery store with my older brother in the summertime. The walk is often an exhausting process because you have to walk up and down a lot of hills and cut through this golf course before you get to the store, which can take an hour. For someone 9 years old, this wasn't such a good idea, especially in July when the humidity around here is at an all-time high. My experience is highly unusual, and I'm not entirely sure what this experience could be classified as, but it's really creepy, and I genuinely believe that if I hadn't gone with this man, I wouldn't be alive today. Confused? Don't worry, you'll understand soon enough. On this particular day, my brother and I decided to head out to the store for another one of our walks. I don't think I drank much water that day, but I remember wanting to go because I wanted to get some snacks. Anyway, about 20 minutes into our walk, right before we had to pass through the golf course, I started to get extremely fatigued and weak. My brother looks back at me and asks if I'm okay. The heat was starting to take its toll on me, and I eventually collapsed. I don't remember how long I was knocked out for, but it definitely seemed like it was a while. But this is where it gets insane. For a second, I thought I had woken up and was just aimlessly staring at the sky. Suddenly, I was staring at this intimidating presence in the sky. It was a man from the early days. He was wearing Victorian era clothing on, suit and tie, and a top hat. He also had a classic car with him that was also floating in the sky next to him. The car was from the same era as him. Anyway, the man started to reach out his arm for me, signaling me to get into the car with him. I don't remember speaking. All I remember was mouthing the words no, and he started to get increasingly agitated. You could see it in his eyes. Again, he waved his arms, but more violently. It really seemed as if this man really wanted me to get in the car with him, and I wasn't having any part of it. And that's when I figured out what he wanted me to do. This guy looked absolutely infuriated right now, because it seemed like he knew, now, that he couldn't convince me to get into the car with him. He looked at me one last time, pointed at me again with the most angry expression on his face, then simply gave up. He literally got back into his car, even noticed that he slammed the door. When he slammed the door, that's when I woke up. My brother was continuously shaking me, and I felt delirious as I slowly started to get back to reality. I was still near the golf course, sweating, and my brother asked me if I was okay. He said he had performed CPR on me because my heart had stopped beating. Even though he was only 14, his health class had given him CPR training. I believe the man in the sky was a fallen angel, or some dark presence luring me into the afterlife. When I made this realization, it seems his plans to go get me to go with him were foiled, and so, whoever had sent me to go get me would have been upset, and thus, probably why he was upset as well. I believe this was a creepy near-death experience, and I highly believe it was paranormal, a ghost or entity of some sort. Some might say that this could be just a hallucination, but if my heart stopped beating, why did I have this vision? I'm not an expert on NDEs in the slightest, but what I do know is that many people report a series of calmness and peace. Here, however, I felt absolute dread and apprehension. Anyway, who really knows what this really was? But I truly believe that if I went with this mysterious figure, I would have died, and I wouldn't be writing about this encounter today. I don't know if you're interested in stories from around the globe, but I thought I might as well give it a go. I live in Northern Ireland and have done so all my life. I come from Tyrone. This is where my story comes from. After a night spent out, one friend was leaving another friend home to Burnpub and traveling the road from Dugaman through Moy and out another few miles to Burnpub where he lived. It was late and the road was windy, very rural, and old houses scattered around. The roads are bendy and prone to fog patches, and when wet, can be treacherous. The bloke who was driving the car suddenly swerved and screamed. They somehow got the Burnpub to my friend's house, and they set him down and tried to get him calm enough to get him talking. He was shaking and sweating, even though it was a winter's night and we aren't that warm over here in the summer. He eventually said that when he was driving, someone ran out in front of his car. The creepiest part was that he said this person was dressed like a nun. He locked eyes with the nun, who looked at him deep into his eyes with fright for a moment's time, and he swerved to try to avoid her. But when this figure finally reached the middle of the road, it simply disappeared into thin air. The friend traveling home with them hadn't seen a thing, and neither of them drank, so it wasn't that. There wasn't any fog on that particular bend, and we didn't hear about any other stories involving this mysterious nun. Not even about a past accident or such taking place there. We aren't sure if this was just his imagination, but he never really had much of an imagination. We just still aren't sure. Stuffy nose, stuffy beak? Yeah, even humans have beaks. I don't even know what I'm saying, guys, but welcome. It's Phantom of Darkness, and I'm glad that you listened to these stories. If you reached the end of this video, then leave a comment below and tell me which story you like the most. My favorite story, for one, was the last one, the Ghost Nun story. It was the most epic, it was the creepiest, but guys, don't forget to leave a like and share this video. I'm sick as a dog. I had to really power through this video, and just to let you know, I'm going to a different country next week, which means I have to pre-record some content for you guys, and I'll have to slur my words. So guys, in the comment section below, say something you like about that country. Whether it's something amazing, whether it's something haunting relating, anything that you think I would think is cool. Okay, I don't know what I'm saying, guys, but thank you so much, and please remember to share this video, as I said. It really helps a lot, especially with my lack of, consistency lately, and I really appreciate that. But most importantly, just comment below. Let me know you're alive. Let me know you're still listening to my stories, and hopefully you're getting a lot of kick out of this, or getting a kick out of it. I gotta go. I don't even know how to talk anymore as usual, and I guess my mind is just spiraling out of control. So I'm gonna take my Blue Yeti and shove it up my butthole, but I'm pretty sure I got demonetized for saying that. But anyway, guys, I'm weird. Let's go. I'm going on the choo-choo train to home, and that means maybe sleep and get some rest because my throat is aching. Love you guys, and see you next time.